How we feeling?
I'm good.
You're good?
Yeah. I mean, we just ate Chipotle, so I'm feeling as good as I can.
As good as you possibly can. I feel like I'm already instantly getting the negative side effects of that, but we'll hustle through it.
Yeah.
Anyways, hi. Welcome back to Pit Exit. That is Nikki Wong. I am Jackson Lambros. Our boy and producer Matt Massamori in the pit box for us. We are going to do our first ever educational bit because, as we mentioned, Nikki, you know a ton about F1. Outside of that, though, wheel knowledge isn't totally there, and I have the privilege of kind of sharing that knowledge with you.
Yes.
So we're going to start with a race that is technically the closest to us, even though it feels like the season just ended, the Rolex 24 Hours of Daytona, and with that, IMSA as a whole and the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. So out of the gate, what do we know about IMSA or sports car racing in general?
Well, actually, should I go back to my notes?
Absolutely.
Okay, let me find it.
Let me see what you got.
Let me find it so fast.
How much research did we actually do for this? I'm curious. The less, the better.
I literally watched a YouTube video.
Amazing.
I watched a YouTube video that breaks down the classes mainly.
Okay.
And then went through the brief history. So the things I have down are 1969, John and Peggy Bishop. Do you know who those people are?
Dang, now I feel like I'm getting stuck up by you on this.
Well, they, I guess, were they created IMSA ? Or they created IMSA, I think.
We're gonna go more around the race itself.
Right. Okay, not just IMSA, but not the history. Well, that's where I started with the history, just getting the basis of it. And then I learned that there are 3 to 4 day sessions.
Yep.
It's Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Yep.
And then there's 4 different championships that are going on at the same time, which is so interesting to me because I'm only very familiar with Formula One, and knowing Formula One, it's basically very, very similar chassis. So to see 4 different cars on the road is very interesting. Learning about GTP, LMP2, GTD Pro, and then GTD.
The two flavors of GTD. Yeah.
Yeah.
Boom.
That's basically, and then pit stop information.
Yeah, perfect. So we're gonna do a kind of brief look at the history of this. Kind of talk about how Daytona became the way it is, and then I'll kind of break down the classes, kind of the rules, and you are being tested on this after. Not really,
great.
but
Okay,
but
cool.
I do want to see what I want some kind of evaluation of what you got here on the backside of this. I need to get this out of the way. This is for anyone watching at home, and I'm sure you know this, but I tell people we got the Rolex 24 coming up, or the 24 Hours of Daytona, and they're like, you mean the Daytona 500? No. And they're like, oh, so 24 Hours of Le Mans? No. So it's neither of those, but it's kind of mashed together in practice. It's basically a 24-hour race in the exact same venue as the home of the Daytona 500. Obviously, though, a different style of it. It uses obviously the roval is what we like to call it, the
roval.
The roval, because it's a combination of it's a road course that uses parts of the oval.
Okay.
Right. So you've got the 2 horseshoes, and then it goes back up onto the speedway, and then there's this little chicane called the bus stop. It's actually no longer called the bus stop because of Le Mans. There's a weird. We'll get to that. We'll get to that.
Yeah.
But case in point, we've been doing this since 1959, when the owners of Daytona International Raceway, NASCAR essentially wanted to broaden their horizons and kind of start trying to do road racing. It first started out as a 3-hour road race, was called the 3-Hour Continental. Then was Daytona, was actually the 6 Hours of Daytona for a year. But for the vast majority of its history, it's been the 24 Hours of Daytona.
Okay.
So most recently, we're in this era right now, and when we do a WEC burner, we'll kind of talk about the relationship between both IMSA and the World Endurance Championship. But what you need to know right now is pretty much all of the classes in both of these series are almost totally interchangeable. And that has really never happened. You've had maybe some categories that are shared, in the GT and prototypes, but this is since 2021, 2022 is when we were kind of entering this kind of era of conjunction between these. So that's why it's called LMDH, the top category, Le Mans, Daytona. The H is either hybrid, hypercar. They literally in the announcement just said Le Mans, Daytona, H. So,
Yeah.
and in honor of that, one of the chicanes at Le Mans circuit is named, at Le Sarthe is named Daytona, and what we used to call the bus stop chicane is now called Le Mans.
Okay.
So it's very confusing because there's Le Mans at Daytona and Daytona at Le Mans.
Yeah.
But that's kind of the whole point of this merger. Am I already overwhelming you at this point?
No.
Okay.
That makes sense, yeah.
Dope. So I think it's also really important to mention that kind of what IMSA was, as you mentioned earlier on, had really, really humble beginnings. It wasn't necessarily like a Formula One where it was the American endurance racing series. Most recently, you look at the turn of the century, and the two really big ones was the American Le Mans series and Grand Am, or the Grand American series. Grand Am was actually what was doing the Rolex 24.
Okay.
But American Le Mans series was very, very popular because you would have a lot of drivers from, at that point, it was either the World Sports Car Championship or 24 Hours of Le Mans come over and actually do that. And that was a big attraction of American talent.
Gotcha.
Matt, you can correct me if I'm wrong. 2014, I believe, was the merger between both of these. And that would ultimately emerge to, at that point, what was called the United Sports Car Series and what we now know as the WeatherTech Sports Car Championship. So I'll give this to you at a glance because there's a lot. 12 races, all in America except one at Canadian Tire Motorsport Park or Mosport. I'm not going to go through the whole schedule with you, but it's a really, really cool mix of, you've got your really big endurance rounds, which is Daytona, Sebring, Indianapolis, Watkins Glen, and the finale, Petit Le Mans. Petit Le Mans was made by Don Panos, who is a huge, huge name. You probably know the Panos name in motorsports.
No, I don't.
Don Panos was really, really well known as originally a race car builder.
Okay.
A lot of prototypes, a lot of road racing cars. Actually made a couple of cars to compete in American open wheel racing as well, the Indy 500. So very, very well known, and then kind of pivoted to the business side of things.
Is that P-A-N-O-S?
P-A-N-O-Z.
P-A-N-O-Z.
Yeah. Brand is kind of dead nowadays. They're still kind of alive, but very, very much has kind of held on to the legacy. Very, very big name in the American Le Mans series before the merger. So obviously that became a part of the calendar as well. And Petit Le Mans at Road Atlanta is a 10-hour race, which has always been the finale. And in between that, your big rounds of what's called the Michelin Endurance Cup, which are all of the super big races. It's the 24 Hours of Daytona, 12 Hours of Sebring, 6 hours at Watkins Glen in New York, and most recently this year, we've had the Battle of the Bricks, which I believe is 8 hours. 8 or 6 hours. There's two, because Indy also has the SRO race, which I want to say is 8 hours. I'm going to have to get that double checked.
So
I'm Googling it. I'm double checking here, but you can throw any questions you got at me right now.
Okay, so all of this, so there's only 12 races in the whole season.
Give or take, yeah.
Give or take. And they're all endurance based?
They're all endurance in practice. What you really got to know is there's always, and we'll get more into this in rules, but there's always going to have to be a pit stop and driver changes. So there could be sprint races in IMSA terms, which is probably like at Long Beach, 2 hours, 40-minute race. Okay. But you're still in that time going to have one pit stop, and you'll have to do a driver change at that point.
Gotcha.
So to knock out all of the endurance racing questions out like right now, no, you don't have a car all to yourself. You're not driving it for that long. It's anywhere from 3 to 4 drivers. It's 4 drivers for Daytona, 3 drivers for the remainder of the endurance calendar, And then for all of the shorter sprint races, it's going to be 2 drivers.
Gotcha.
And also, how do I say this? It's not like, I'm trying to think of how to word this. All 4 of the classes that we're going to talk about, they do not all race at every single event, if that makes sense. For all of the endurance races, they're all going to be there.
Okay.
But depending on whether it's, sometimes the tracks are too small or it's just not logistically possible to get them all there. Like Long Beach, you've got a lot going on outside of that. So it's usually just the prototypes in one of the GT classes.
Okay.
So, and then consistently you've had maybe prototype only races or GT only races. And that's kind of a big sort of deal as well. So.
Okay. I feel like that makes for an interesting championship numbers and how that's kind of.
Oh, absolutely. Because depending on, you could be racing in as many as, 8 races or as few as maybe 6 or 7, depending on what you have. So outside of the calendar, I think some other really big ones that we're going to talk about at some point are Road America, Laguna Seca, a lot of really big old school American tracks. I like to use the term like jewel box, which is like a baseball term of like Fenway Park, Yankee Stadium, all these kind of old tracks with a lot of history to them. Okay. 100%. Like a lot of those kind of old school tracks that we will probably never see F1 race at again, just because it's too fast and too technical, too complicated to have those kinds of cars there. But it's very grassroots. It's very, very cool.
Yeah.
How we doing?
Good.
Good? Okay. Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Let's do this then. I think I've got pretty much everything for kind of the background here, but as you mentioned, it is talking about the cars. It is 4 races going on at the same time. If it's an endurance race, there's always going to be at least 2 in IMSA and the World Endurance Championship. But that's kind of something that's been recently added on over time as the business side of this kind of became more of a factor of, there's a gajillion cars in this race and I want to still be able to compete. Yeah. But what's the point if I'm just going to show up and be guaranteed to run in the midfield? So in other forms of endurance racing, it could be you have everybody running in the same kind of car, but maybe it's divided into class. We're going to see that with the GT cars. But sometimes it's just, completely different kinds of machinery. So I'll ask you this. Do we want to start with the slowest cars and go faster or fastest cars and go slower?
Let's start with the slowest cars.
Slowest cars?
Faster.
Okay.
Yeah.
So immediately I'm going to say this. You got 2 flavors of cars. You've got Grand Touring or GT and you've got prototypes.
Okay.
GTs are basically cars that if we look out the window and see that on the street, those are going to be cars that we would know. So like, granted, usually it's very much like the cream of the crop. So like Ferraris, Lamborghinis, BMWs, very, very high-end cars. But pretty much any car can be converted into the GT3 set regulations that they're adapted to. We call them, GT3 is just the set of regulations they go under. They go under the GT Daytona name. Okay. For IMSA. It's going to be very confusing because you're going to see these machines in 100 different series and they're all going to have 100 different names. So we call them GT Daytona. And they're really broken down into 2 classes. You've got just normal GT Daytona and GTD Pro. What you really need to know is just Pro is your factory lineups. So if I'll use a perfect example, Corvette Racing. So if I'm Corvette Racing, I could run up as a team and be like, I would like one of your race cars. And they're like, absolutely, pay up. But if I am Chevy or Corvette, there could maybe be a group of guys like in real life, Pratt Miller Racing, who I trust, who I know will do really, really good. And I will give them factory funding and I will give them access to the drivers that are part of our program. So GTD Pro is factory drivers, professional drivers, factory funding. So very much like the peak of GT. Okay. GTD is basically, and we'll get more into this when we inevitably have this conversation about like FIA driver ratings. But you need to have guys in the lower FIA. You need to have at least one driver in the FIA lower ratings, so silver or bronze. And that's usually whether it's a rookie or usually a gentleman driver. You know the term gentleman driver. You've seen enough F1, right?
Actually, no.
Really?
Gentleman driver? What is that? No.
So it's unfortunately not really adapted to our modern times, although I don't think I've ever seen a female gentleman driver. It's the concept of paying money to go get in your seat.
Oh.
So if I have $2 million, I can't go pitch for the San Diego Padres, right?
Yeah.
That's the weird thing about racing, though, because you sometimes have teams that are so short on money and looking for financial income that you've got a lot of guys that are willing to fork over cash to kind of go play. I don't want to say play pretend as racing drivers because they literally are like racing in some of the biggest races in the world. The greatest example I can give off the top of my head, in GT Daytona, Inception Racing, they raced the McLaren 720. Brendan Uribe is the former CEO and founder of Oculus.
Like the
The headsets, yeah.
What
So
the
you've got a lot of cool guys like that, but you have a lot of guys. That's kind of the cool thing about sports car racing too, is you have so many different backgrounds of individuals.
Yeah.
And why I just love the 24 Hours of Daytona as a whole, because you can have, absolute grassroots. I grew up driving my dad's Miata Cup car, and I'm absolutely made for this. And my teammate is a 47-year-old from Silicon Valley. This is his first race ever, and he has 90 stocks in NVIDIA. Like,
okay, so would an example of a gentleman driver in Formula One be like Lance Stroll?
So actually, if we were having this conversation in 2017, absolutely.
Okay.
Lance is unfortunately in a really weird case now where it's like, it's Little League and I'm not necessarily great, but I'm still here because my dad's the coach.
Yeah.
Yeah. But, dude, Nicholas Latifi, Nikita Mazepin, Sergey Sorokin. And this has been a very, very long. This is not a new concept by any means. The drummer for ABBA, and I hate how I'm forgetting the name. I believe it was Shadow who he raced for because he had the excess money. Niki Lauda, that's a great point.
The drummer for ABBA was a race car driver?
He did just a handful of races, but he used that cash to go be like,
whoa,
hey, I know you're financially struggling.
Wait.
What's up, baby? Let's party.
I think I have a new dream.
Now, again, it's not like, okay, so it's not like you can't give them a deal they can't deny. Like, you can't do absolutely nothing. And Lance Stroll, Sergey Sorokin, all these guys have had like a ladder resume, right?
They have, yeah.
The great thing about sports cars and GT3s as a whole, and this is where we're going to kind of fall down a hole of legitimacy here, they've kind of been made to be very easy to access for rookie drivers. GT3s are a great example. They have, anti-lock brakes, traction control. So a lot of things to kind of make sure that you keep it off of the grass and you kind of keep going.
Yeah.
That doesn't make it impossible to like biff it or do dumb things, obviously. But it's definitely making it as accessible as possible. GT3 has always kind of been that sort of as accessible as possible, not just for manufacturers, but for teams.
Yeah, because they're factory cars like every day on the road.
Exactly.
Right? So it's not like super similar, but in terms of like familiarity.
There you go. Yeah.
Yeah, like it feels.
Exactly. And there are some slightly more, we're spoiled because we're Southern Californians and we see these cars a lot.
Yeah,
especially like BMW. Okay, not that much, but like BMW M4s or like Mercedes AMGs.
Yeah,
like we
every day on the road.
Depending on where you live, yes.
Yeah.
But that's also, I think, the really cool thing about it is you still have such this variety of different machinery. Like you have these massive like British Grand Tours next to these like super low slung Italian exotics. But kind of going back to, and this is going back to big picture, and I didn't really mention this at the start, but Daytona has always been seen as this unofficial start of the racing year. It's always either like last weekend of January, first weekend of February. And what's great about it is it's this time where a lot of drivers are still just getting started in preseason for whatever they're doing respectively. So I always have kind of referred to it as like the Super Smash Brothers or like the Infinity War of races, because yes, you get a mix of paid drivers and real drivers, but these legit drivers, don't get me wrong, you have a ton of sports car, like guys who are diehard sports car drivers, and we'll get into that in a little bit.
Yeah.
But you have guys from Formula One, IndyCar, NASCAR, guys from all different types of disciplines going to, give this a shot. I think off the top of my head, there was a year where there was Jeff Gordon, Yarno Trulli, like a bunch of guys from different backgrounds. Jeff Gordon's won a couple races. So not only is it like where you see it, it's not just a race where you see a lot of different guys, but it feels like everyone kind of has a chance at winning.
Yeah, that's great.
And I think that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, but going back to this, I'm sorry, we went on such a bird walk for me to kind of fully explain this, but GT3, or GT Daytona, I think looking at next year for people you should look for, and it's really, really hard to tell again, when we're recording this, Petit Le Mans for this year just ended 2 weeks ago, and we're still seeing a lot of guys moving around. Paul Miller Racing has been really, really good. They run the BMW M4. They were almost undefeated last year. And by last year, I mean 2023. I'm not sure when we're going to have this uploaded. But AO Racing. AO. Boom, boom, boom. Let me hear you say AO. Okay. I tried.
What?
Nothing.
Like
I was hoping
like
for a little
Freddie
bit more.
Mercury, what?
No, well, that one also works. It's fine.
Okay. Wait, what?
I don't even know where you were going with that.
Never mind.
Yeah. No, please explain. That's what I was thinking.
So there's another song where it goes boom, boom, boom. Let me hear you say Ayo. And then everybody goes Ayo, but I'm already forgetting who it is.
Oh.
Matt, for the love of God, please cut this out. I'm never going to see the light of day if this gets aired. No, you son of a bitch.
Ayo.
Have you seen anything online about a Porsche that is painted like a dinosaur?
No.
No?
No.
Okay.
I'm not
Very quickly.
online.
That's probably for the best. I'm really happy for you with that.
Thanks.
Actually.
I try.
Okay.
So it's a
It's we call it's AO Racing.
Okay.
But they are your defending GT Daytona champions. They're also insanely good. This is just their sophomore year, but they just started in 2023. Did a really cool kind of like Buddha design car for Daytona, and then for Sebring they just decided to have like do something cool. And it was almost like an April Fool's kind of play on things, but it was like, what if we painted our car like a dinosaur?
Yeah, it's pretty sick.
So we named it. So they named it Rexy.
Nice.
And everyone instantly was just hyping it up so much.
Can I see a picture of this?
My laptop unfortunately just died.
Here, I'm gonna search it up.
So I'm gonna go get my charger.
Yeah, go get your charger. Ayo. Dinosaur. Oh, it's green?
Yeah.
Wait, why was I expecting like an orange? We could keep it.
They have a sister car named Roxy.
Oh my god. Wait, this is sick. I kind of want this car. Wait, they have a little purple one too?
Yeah. Oh my god, I was gonna freaking tell you about that one later.
Guys, this is adorable.
Yeah, that's Spike. That's their LMP2.
Oh my
Don't mention it.
god.
Looks like Spyro.
Like what?
Spyro the Dragon from... Okay, actually, no, you wouldn't get that. So my favorite thing about it is they do... And I'm a sucker for whenever teams do this, but they have these, like... They update their livery depending on what happens.
Yes, it makes it so interesting.
So, Long Beach. Long Beach last year. Matt and I are covering our first ever race. We're watching, like, Rexy's first time at Long Beach.
Rexy.
In the outlap, instantly beans it into the wall.
Oh.
Tub is cracked. They're done for the weekend.
No.
Like, they cannot finish the race. So we go the following race a couple weeks later at Laguna Seca.
Yeah.
They painted over a cast on the door where it beefed
That's
it. You're not even letting me
amazing.
tell the best part because they had everyone from Porsche Motorsports North America sign the cast.
Oh my
It was so
God.
cute.
Wait, I need to see pictures
I
of this
love when
too.
people did this.
Wait, actually-
I have a video and I'll see if we can get that up for B-roll for everybody at home, but no, it's so cute. But then this year they were on an absolute tear. Won I think 3 races, and every time they won, they gave Rexy a little gold tooth. So no, I'm a sucker for when they do that. But
No, it's awesome. I liked when or this is F1, but when Alpine did Wolverine and Deadpool.
Yeah.
Cool.
Well, my favorite was 2021 when Alonso was with them and they did L Plan on the rear wing. Do you not remember that? That was a huge joke on the inside. Joey's nodding, but it was like a whole joke of we just need to trust the plan. So they just replaced Alpine with L plan on the back. I love it.
Funny.
I love it.
It's like the one thing they don't need to focus on.
No, not at all. Not at all. The best teams are the ones that ignore like what you're actually supposed to do and just be like, we're racing. This should be fun.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite teams that does this is Magnus Racing, who is another GT team racing Aston Martin V8 Vantage. And I don't want to say this. It's unfortunately... It's put together by a guy named John Potter. He's technically a gentleman driver. He's the owner of the team, though.
Okay.
But it's very much a like we are here to have fun kind of thing. But he's unfortunately the team's always been endurance only, and maybe a couple of rounds extra. You'll see a lot of international teams do that where they'll maybe just do like the international rounds. Not the international rounds, the endurance rounds.
Okay.
But yeah, they announced unfortunately at this point in the season that this Daytona upcoming is gonna be their last one. So
whoa, ever?
At least for now.
Oh my god.
Which sucks. Ryan Eversley, who's a friend of ours, has driven for them a lot. Same with Andy Lally, who's another good friend of ours. But they also are kind of the fun guys of the grid because they'll always have like a movie themed livery or like have you seen like the hero cards if you go to races?
I've never been to a race.
We so need to fix that.
I know, but they're so expensive. For the weekend, I remember texting Matt and I was like, "Hey Matt, how much is this weekend?" And he's like, like
Matt, how much were tickets for IMSA at Laguna Seca? Like $20. No, they were not.
Yes. Yes.
You're lying.
They were so expensive.
Oh, okay.
That's in the car.
General admission for Long Beach, depending on the day, is still pennies on the dollar for F1. And IMSA is always going to be cheaper.
Gotcha.
Also, the paddock's always free.
The paddock is always free, and you're always able to. How have I not mentioned this yet? Oh my god. This is also what makes IMSA so great. Is you're gonna love this so much when we're at Long Beach, but you get to be right there with the cars. There's no super strict fan interactions with cars in the paddock. So, if you're nice enough, if you're nice enough with some of the guys, they'll maybe let you sit in the cars. So, no, you can get so hands on with the machines. It's
so
really
exciting.
really cool. It's really really cool.
When is Laguna?
Both Laguna and Long Beach are spring. So
in the spring.
Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Who else do I have for GTD? Oh my God, Corvette Racing. If you ask anyone right now what the most popular, I mentioned them earlier, but if I ask anyone in the paddock right now what the most popular GT team has been, it's Corvette Racing, easily. Just because of the heritage they've had. They've been doing this for over 30 years now. Easily one of the most successful as well. They've run through all of the generations, I think, since the 6th generation Corvette, or no, easily the 5th. Sorry,
Okay.
because we're on the 8th at this point. But no, a ton of history there. And they're kind of weird because they designed their car for a higher up spec of GT that no longer exists, GT Endurance. And they had this weird like interchange where they had to D2 in their car and then make an actual GT3 version of it. They've had to do a lot of changing.
Okay.
But they are absolute favorites. And then probably I don't want to say underdogs are like the up and coming, Vassar Sullivan. And Jimmy Vassar, who's a former IndyCar driver, and James Sullivan are the team owners. They have been running this Lexus, the Lexus RCF, since like 2019. You usually see a lot of teams in GT kind of switch cars pretty frequently, especially if they're customer programs, just because, one, you kind of want to stay on top of what's modern and competitive. Lexus and Toyota have not updated their car. They've had like in-house upgrades, but usually manufacturers will send out like new evolution models or like improved versions.
Okay.
Lexus haven't, but there hasn't been any like straight Evo models of the RCF at all.
Not declared as, but essentially.
There's been upgrade packages, but it's never been like a brand new car, right?
I mean, considering the performance of the car in 2019 versus.
So I think they've been the favorites for winning Daytona forever, and it just feels like they always get struck with bad luck one way or another. They started really far up front for Daytona, and they crashed almost. They didn't crash almost instantly, but a GT spun in front of them, and they ran, and they were pretty much like instantly put 3 laps down and were crawling back the entire race.
Gotcha.
So almost always bad luck for them. I'm going to run through these really quickly because those are all the pros I had written down.
Yeah.
Windward Racing. I really like them because they have a little sticker of Bowsette on their car.
Oh my gosh.
And the really quick story behind that is they had a German engineer who was really grumpy and left the team, and they named it the Princess in his honor. And Funky Garage, who's an online artist, they literally commissioned him to have these stickers on the inside of their car as a joke, and then they just won Daytona.
Oh my god.
And they actually ended up winning they're now are defending IMSA like season champions from this year.
Wow.
So very, very cool.
Yeah,
Anime
cool.
stickers do in fact make your car faster. So
Is that wait, I remember you talking in some like meeting. Wasn't there like a Miku thing?
when we'll get the short of it is Good Smile Racing. Go Google Good Smile Racing. I'll get back to you on that in a couple of weeks. We'll get on that. Turner Motorsports, I have a little diecast of them. I brought my little diecast of it up there, the blue one. They are very much, again, not a lot of guys like are teamed with manufacturers forever. Turner has been running BMW for like, it feels like at least 25 years now. And it's very much like Corvette Racing was very much like, you are going to be running this at the top forever. It's a really cool story for Will Turner. Started in like the really low categories of sports car racing and kind of climbed up to the top, and runs in all sorts of categories outside of GT Daytona. They love tacos. If the opportunity arises, they will put, if they don't have a sponsor, they'll just put tacos on the side of the car.
Nice.
I love them a lot. Really, really nice crew. Forte Racing, we haven't really mentioned a Lambo team yet, but they are easily, I think, the Lambo team to beat for sure. Really, really good group of guys as well. Almost won, had a really good battle for the win at Petit Le Mans. I think they're going to be a really strong contender next year. And then the last one, Wright Racing, Porsche. If you saw the race last year, there was a giant camera mounted to the back of this thing.
Oh my god.
Because we just lost a light, and I don't know if that's going to be an issue.
Oh.
That's not the one I unplugged, by the way. This one, unfortunately, is going to require some heavy editing.
What?
This one's going to need some editing. We're going to get back to this. So if you saw the race last year, there was a giant movie camera mounted on the back of this thing.
Yeah.
And that's because they were actually recording for the Brad Pitt F1 movie.
Oh.
So literally there was like a whole, like Brad Pitt was there, like the whole week in preparation for it.
Yeah.
And they were doing a ton of recording like off, during like free sessions, but they had that thing mounted for like the entire race.
Whoa! But this was on a GTD Pro car.
Yeah, it was a Porsche 911. Yeah.
Oh. I wonder. Now I'm thinking like, how is that
going to get worked into the
Formula
plot,
1,
right?
Yeah.
Because we now also know like he won Mexico probably.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a whole episode, I think, at some point where we just talk about the whatever. I think it's just called F1.
It's literally just, they could have named it something way more interesting.
Yeah,
and it's just F1.
F1.
Yeah.
I feel like Ford versus Ferrari could have had a way cooler name too, and they just did Ford versus
Wait,
Ferrari.
I liked Ford.
Oh, because it was Le Mans 66 in Europe, right? That's fair, and that's totally fair. Okay. Before we move on, do we have any questions? I threw so much at you. I feel like we went from 0 to 100 for GT.
No, I feel like, okay, it makes sense. So you were talking about how with GTD Pro, they have like factory cars.
Right.
Right? So like.
So I'm getting cash from this manufacturer and sometimes drivers who are being paid from said manufacturer to drive cars for me.
Right. That makes sense. And then we talked about gentleman drivers, which also makes sense. I just like didn't have a name for it.
Yeah.
Now they have a name
Or pay drivers. Pay
drivers.
drivers also,
pay
yeah.
drivers? Okay. And yeah, I mean, we were just talking about the different teams and like the different liveries that they have. Yeah, it makes sense. So these are the slower cars.
These are gonna be the slowest ones you're gonna see on
okay.
track.
How slow are we talking?
I mean, still very. That's not to say like F2 versus F1 levels, but it's still gonna be, these cars probably make ballpark 450, 500 horsepower.
Which cars?
GT3.
They're capped at 500.
Yeah, so about 500 horsepower, give or take. Top speed of around, at Daytona, you'll see them probably hit around 180 miles an hour on the oval.
Gotcha.
And again, there's no strict division on like power between these two classes, so you're going to see a lot of them kind of mingling on track with each other.
Okay.
But they're still kind of running their own race in their own class, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
But a GT Am car is absolutely capable of being like, of winning in both of those divisions, like being the fastest of both of those divisions.
Okay. And then in terms of like regulations, what regulations do these like two classes have to follow?
Basically, pro drivers in the pro division, and at least one driver, I believe it's silver or bronze in the Am division.
Okay. Well, I was talking mainly about like the car.
Technical?
Yeah.
So again, those all kind of fall under the FIA's regulations for GT3.
Yeah.
So it's just if it is a road car and you build X amount each year, then it's going to be, they're going to give you basically a piece of paper that says this is eligible until this year.
That's it?
Or until for a certain number of years, basically.
Wait, that's it?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I mean, realistically, you want it to be a car that like would be appealing. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna do like a Chevy Suburban GT3 car.
No.
Get on it, GM.
Get me a Nissan Altima right
Nissan
now.
Altima, dude.
There's a Nissan Altima drift car.
Really?
There is, yeah.
Chris Forsberg.
Chris Forsberg, baby.
There's like a decked out Nissan Altima that drives around the circle. I don't know who
There's-
it is.
and
I don't know
that-
who it is, but I'm like, this is crazy.
Nothing pervades chaos on a public road more than a
The
Nissan Altima. True freedom.
Okay, so all you have to do, or not all you have to do, but is like make a certain amount of these cars. It's a road car. And they're, like-
It's what's called homologation. So it's like we need you to convince us that this is actually like a normal road car and you're not just making this to go racing.
Yeah. Okay. And they're like, here you go.
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't necessarily need to be until like through the end of production. Like best example right now, the Acura NSX. Production ended, but homologation is still good for that car for a couple more years. Granted, Acura is like, we stopped production on this. We have no need to run this anymore because we're not selling it to anyone. So after the end of last season, we're not going to see any more Acura NSXs in that class.
Okay, gotcha.
Yeah. I think I'm going to actually mention really quickly. So you have all of these different types of cars, different engines in different parts of the car. So in order to balance it, and I'm going to mention this really quickly, we'll get more into it with the higher up categories, but they have what's called balance of performance. And basically,
Wait, yeah, I wrote that down.
you wrote BOP?
Yeah.
I'm proud of you. There we go.
did,
There
I
we
wrote
go.
that
But BOP is basically IMSA will look at the results from practice and test sessions and either add or remove horsepower or weight to the car depending on how that car performs. So again, it's hard to... It keeps it from manufacturers just making an arms race of who has the most insane fastest car because again, this is about accessibility, right? We're not making F1 cars here.
Yeah.
But two, again, it just makes it it tries to make it as equal as possible. And I think there's a lot of controversy there because a lot of teams will intentionally sandbag or go slow in certain sessions to get boosts of horsepower. Some people just wish they would run totally unrestricted, but again, you want it to be as accessible and simple as possible for brands.
So interesting. Okay. It's literally like FI's like, you're too good, nerfing you.
No, quite literally. But some teams will be like, oh, we're so slow. Can I please have another 5 horsepower?
Yeah.
And oh my God, Matt, do you remember Audi in like 2019 was like the great example of this, where Audi with the R8 was totally like the whole week leading up was like, we're so slow. Can we please have some more, mister? And it got to the point where like halfway into the race, they were almost a whole lap on the competition. So they literally had a stop and go penalty for them, like a 2-minute stop and go penalty.
Whoa.
For just like, it was almost like a given mercy rule for how fast they were.
Yeah.
Again, if you said this was going to be a thing in like in the middle of the 70s, people would think you're insane.
Yeah.
But we're at this point now where, manufacturers and everything wants to be as competitive as possible. So I actually really like it because if I'm a manufacturer who maybe doesn't go racing and I want to give it a shot, GT3 is absolutely where I can go and maybe do it. So.
Yeah, because it technically, like, while using balanced performance, it makes the drivers shine a little bit more.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, in terms of, like, it being all on the car. So that I think that's a good way to sort of balance it all out.
And I think there is also something really physically like challenging of you're going from like depending on when you're switching teams, because cars kind of fundamentally change very little unless there's like a huge regulation change in Formula One. But the engine's always going to be behind you. It's always going to be relatively the same. I could go from a Ferrari 488 to a Ford Mustang in a season, and that's how the car is going to act under cornering and under power and under different conditions is going to change so much.
Yeah.
So it's like you're adapting to almost a completely new race car sometimes.
Yeah.
So we're going to, if you have nothing else for GTs, because we're lingering here, we're going to move on to the prototypes. So these might have some DNA from some road cars, but by and large, these are basically the Formula One cars of endurance racing. They're purpose-built to go as fast as possible for as long as possible. So we're going to start with LMP2, which is kind of known as the, quote, other prototype category. You are not going to see manufacturers that you would traditionally like know on the road. You're going to see a lot of bespoke racing manufacturers, so guys that build chassis and engines. So originally there was a huge handful of different chassis in this division, but it's pretty much all narrowed down now just to business reasons, and people pretty much figured out that the most support would be in from a manufacturer called Oreca.
Say what again?
Oreca. Oreca.
Oreca.
Yeah. Okay. And every single team except one last year ran in Oreca.
Oh.
Sean Creek Motorsports ran in a Ligier. Don't look them up because they did not have a great season.
Okay.
Outside of the fact that they were kind of going against the grain, there was a lot of outside factors there. But there's no real need for a balance of performance there because everyone is essentially running the exact same car.
Okay.
I would say the other thing that Matt and I have talked about is it's sometimes cheaper to run a LMP2 than a GT3 car. It's always going to be cheaper than, it's almost always going to be cheaper than the hypercars, which we'll talk about here in a moment. But again, a lot of it is not like you don't need to go to a manufacturer to get something. It's a lot of kind of off the shelf components.
Okay.
So I don't need to like ring up a certain manufacturer to go get me this shiny brand new part. I can sometimes pull a lot of stuff from other race cars, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense.
It's hard for me to give you a specific, it genuinely feels like every single year because it's the exact same car. It feels like any single driver or team or crew can win each year. I think what's been really cool, though, is both in and out of IMSA, it's kind of been this weird proving ground for a lot of feeder series talent, if that makes sense. Connor Zilich is the instant example I'm going to go to. Is racing in Xfinity next year, which is kind of like the F2 of NASCAR, if I were to explain it like that. Okay. But has absolutely kicked butt in Trans Am and MX5 Cup. Super, super talented guy. There's been a lot of really good up-and-coming drivers in IndyCar driving. Hunter McElroy, Christian Rasmussen, Linus Lundqvist have all gotten a shot. Lando Norris drove with Fernando Alonso a couple years ago. And I will mention one of the cool things about one of the coolest teams here is United Autosport, which is the team that Fernando and Lando drove for. And I want you to guess why.
Why? Wait, why what?
Why did they drive for United Autosport? I'll give you another hint. In Europe, they drive the McLaren 720 in the GT3 class. There's clearly an association here.
Like between McLaren and and Lando?
McLaren and United Autosports, this team. Zach Brown, before his role at McLaren, was the owner and was actually a part-time driver at United.
What?
So team still runs. Zach is still at the helm of that part-time too, by the way.
Oh my God.
But yeah, one of the really cool kind of intersections there.
Yeah,
I will also
cool.
really quickly mention Riley Motorsports. I mentioned Panos earlier. Riley is also formerly a very, very well-known chassis manufacturer. And Bill Riley, the head of that, has kind of pivoted from building race cars to just running a team and managing it. But one of the very, very well-known names in sports car racing.
This whole Alonso Norris thing, this was after Alonso broke up with her?
I want to say it was 2018. It was either 18 or 19.
So like either right before then.
Yeah. It was I think his final year with McLaren. He did it with Lando. I'm 90% sure.
That is crazy.
Yeah, and that's, again, the awesome thing about the Rolex 24. You get so many different drivers from different corners and different disciplines.
Yeah.
So, I love it. I love it. I love it. 2018. Thank you, Matt.
Oh my God. That was like kind of
So
recent.
you had Fernando in his final year with McLaren, and you had literal 17-year-old baby Lando Norris.
Oh my God. Okay.
And then just a couple years ago, you had Pato O'Ward, Devlin DiFrancesco, a couple of IndyCar guys, Rinus VeeKay. So a lot of well-known guys on the IndyCar side all teaming up. I love this. This is what I love about like LMP2 specifically. I think why it's so popular is because it has such minimal driving assistance. It's kind of similar to like a really high-end, like not quite F1, but very similar to like an Indy car or like an F2 car. The only difference is you got a roof and you got fenders on it. Yeah. So I think there's a little bit of similarity there, but it really is just one big spec series. Everyone's running the exact same car. So almost always we talk about how there's 4 different races going on. There is almost always some wheel-to-wheel racing between the LMP2 cars. It's always a really good show. Oh my God, it was last year. There was literally like a drag race to the finish between the I forget the 2 cars. I think which one?
It was the CrowdStrike car.
It was the CrowdStrike car, and I think it was the ERA car. I'm 90% sure.
CrowdStrike has stake in this?
Yeah, dude.
That's crazy.
I need to mention CrowdStrike because George Kurtz, the CEO of CrowdStrike, gentleman driver, baby.
Oh, what?
There you go.
Wow. There's so much lore.
I know, right? That's the thing. You can never explain it. This is why this is so interesting but difficult, because you can never just explain racing to someone. You've got to add in 90 different things on top of it.
Right.
It's like an onion. It's got layers. I think though, I actually think that's everything for LMP2 before we kind of get to the main event here.
Okay. I kind of want to see what an LMP2 car looks like.
Okay, absolutely.
Because I've seen Rexy.
You've seen Spike.
Oh, sorry, Spike. I like Spike. Spike's cool.
So all of these are basically going to be that.
Oh. Oh, this is the purple one.
That's the purple one.
Okay.
They're smaller than you think.
And then they all kind of look like that. I do...
Wait, I've literally... Guys, wait, this is... like, hold on one second. Oh, actually, I don't think I have... I don't have this, but I went to Silverstone in like 2023 January. Like I went to the museum, and there's a bunch of cars in the museum, and I'm pretty sure I saw one that looks like that.
So that is, it's going to be either that or something really close to that.
Yeah.
If this is what I think it is going to be the
Wait, I don't
perfect
think I
effing segue into this top category.
I don't think
But
I have photos.
Any of the top tier prototypes kind of are vaguely in that shape. Got the big fenders with the open tops and the big old shark fin at the back. Do you have any other questions in LMP2 for me before I move on?
Do I have any? Oh, maybe about like the speed. So okay, we have the GTD and GTD Pros. That's like 450, 500 horsepower, topping around 180. What about for LMP2?
LMP2 they use a V8, which it's from another manufacturer called Gibson. They're all on the
Gibson.
exact same motor.
Okay.
To kind of really add in that diversity. They'll probably hit around, I want to say 200. They're up there. They're fast. Mm-hmm. They're also insanely loud.
Is it like a high screeching sound?
It's one of the higher. Yeah. No, not quite there.
Okay.
But it's like a. I like doing those car sounds.
Nice. Okay.
You know it's up. It's for sure got that kind of like gargle to it. Is the best way I could describe it.
Gotcha. Okay.
Okay. Main event then. GTP is what we call it.
GTP.
Grand Touring Prototype. So we technically have 5 GTPs or 5 GTs, excuse me. But 5 GTs, I'm so tired, dude. We technically have 3 GT classes if you count the top prototype class, because it's Grand Touring Prototype.
Ah, yes.
We're gonna cut this whole part out.
Yeah.
GTP is the top class in IMSA. It's been in since 2023, so last year. And the basic rule of it is it's got to be a prototype body, but it has to resemble some kind of road manufacturer.
Okay.
And that's IMSA specific rules. If you look over at WEC, sometimes you see a lot of like Bike Holes and Van Wall are two like of the kind of bespoke manufacturers I was talking about, where they're just kind of race car builders. There needs to be some kind of road car influence or road car DNA in this.
Okay.
So that means we see cars like BMW, which I'm actually going to pull up here because this is what it looks like.
Oh, nice.
So that is the runner-up car. That's the 25. So that's the runner-up at Sebring car. We're not sponsored by Mini GT, but these are awesome. So thank you.
It's so flat.
I know. So what people don't actually realize is actually how tiny these freaking cars are, because people see the width of like the cockpit and they associate it with like the width of like a normal car. Does that make sense?
Wait, so this is the width of
That's-
a normal car?
No, that isn't. But that's like you got to fit a normal human inside there.
Yeah.
But people assume that like I'm gonna get my GT3 M4 here, but you assume that like this is the width of this. You know what I mean?
Oh, some people assume
Yeah,
that.
like
Oh.
on screen, but in person they are so tiny. Like these are
Okay.
both 164, and this is actually almost tinier than the actual road car.
Got you.
So-
I did not assume that was this.
No, I don't know.
Okay.
I'm clarifying.
Oh wait, no, I kind of want to
Oh,
see
absolutely.
these. Wait,
Which
this
one
is
do you
like
want?
so much better. Wait, I want both of them.
You want both of them? Heck
So
yeah.
this is
That's
this
our
is-
GTD car.
This is a GTD car.
Yeah.
And this is a
That's our GTP.
this is GTP.
Yep. Both
These
BMWs.
are so different.
Right? I'll start fundamentally. That one's got the engine in front of it.
Yeah.
That one's got it behind, and you can see just how much more aggressive the aero is. You've got that shark fin at the back. You've got that giant rear wing with the end plates.
Yeah.
But if you look at the front, it's still got to keep that kind of BMW design language on it. It's got the big sniffers, the kidney grill at the front. So it's still got to kind of keep that BMW design language, right?
Okay, I can see what you're talking about. Yeah, like you said it was has to sort of resemble a road car.
So you're making it as fast as stinking possible, but at the end of the day, you still got to be able to look at it and be like, that's a BMW or an Aston Martin or something like that.
Yeah. Whereas opposed to this,
It's
like-
literally you are pulling one of those out from the factory floor and converting it to GT3 spec.
Right.
I want to make a producer's desk note real quick.
Yeah.
I just asked Matt. I just conferred with Matt real quick. That GTD is way way smaller than it should be as a figurine compared to the.
Oh, really?
Those things are tiny. Like I don't think you overplayed enough how small those things are.
The GTPs?
The GTPs.
Absolutely.
They're tiny. Like they're really like however you think.
You're gonna
Like-
see in person.
Okay, we were talking about Fiestas earlier.
It's not Fiesta small. No, it's not Fiesta small.
Okay.
But in wheelbase dimensions, you got to shrink it down a little bit, and then you got to put a person in there.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
Well, the best way size-wise, if you've seen a current F1 car, is it's like dimensionally length and width about the same size, but then
Okay.
you put like a canopy on it.
no, literally, it's like if you put a fighter jet canopy over an F1 car and fenders.
Gotcha. Okay. That makes sense. I'm picturing it in my head.
There you go.
I see the vision.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's got to look like a road car to an extent, or at least the road car it's resembling. Usually, more often than not, it also has the engine from a road car.
Okay.
That BMW we just saw uses.
To make an interjection on that, the update to that regulation is they can use whatever engine they want. The DPI regulations stipulated that it had to be based off of
Right.
car block.
Right. So, but more often than not, you see. Okay. So GT3 regs are like, for engine wise, you can literally run whatever you want. For GTP, it's still very much open in what kind of like engine type, but it's got to fit within certain dimensions. Basically, you've got to have it's got to be small enough where you can fit it within the engine bay.
Okay.
Pretty much. But you still see a huge diversity. Like, I don't have it. The BMW is twin turbo V8. Sounds a lot like, I feel like to me it sounds like a spaceship.
Okay. You want to give us a little soundbite?
I'm not even gonna try. I've already kind of ruined my reputation here, I feel like.
Oh.
But, the Acura has their prototype, and it's actually a prototype IndyCar engine. So really high revving turbo V6, and then you've just got the like bone shaking Cadillac V8, like no naturally aspirated, so no turbocharger or anything, and it is just straight American like V8, like super loud. You can feel it in your chest. It is
Gotcha.
the best. Should also mention that these cars are hybrid. These are the only
oh my God.
first cars to have a
They're
hybrid
energy
system in
conscious.
endurance. Heck yeah, baby. Not quite like Formula One in a lot of ways. First of all, it's a spec system, so it's all supplied by Bosch. Bosch, am I pronouncing that right? Bosch.
BOSH?
BOSCH.
BOSCH.
There we go. And instead of being kind of integrated into the engine, like Formula One, it's actually a part of the transmission.
Okay.
So what that means is you can actually, basically you can take off under, if you've probably seen viral clips of one of these cars peeling out of the pit lane on electric power, kind of going, and then as it goes down the pit lane, and it basically bump starts on power.
Gotcha.
But it's a lot more liberal on how you can store and use the energy. And that's also a really big part. We were talking about balance of performance earlier.
Yeah.
That's another big part of the BOP for this category as well. Because again, they're trying to make the racing as close as possible.
Yeah.
So they can sometimes add and take away horsepower, but more often than not, they will either limit how much your battery can store or how much you can deploy in a certain lap.
Okay. And then how do they regulate this? Like in the car?
They have
are there
live
sensors?
monitoring. That is easily one of the coolest parts actually, which I don't know if F1 TV allows this yet, if you can see where the energy is at or if how much energy is remaining in their hybrid system.
I think. I think you can.
It's not even close to that.
It's not even
Oh.
so on IMSA's live telemetry, you can see how much battery they have left, whether they're storing it or using it. It's really cool.
That's cool. Okay.
Okay, I kind of made that up. A lot of people say it's really inaccurate because it would be too valuable for other
Right.
cars to use that information.
Right.
There's a YouTube channel that I specifically have subscribed to that does all the breakdowns by using the onboard audio to find the
Right.
alignment.
Okay, so listening to Matt, you need that. That's also the really cool thing of like a lot of that is behind wraps because of the secrets that the teams are trying to keep. So you need to do like a deep breakdown to like be able to tell when these guys are getting on the button for hybrid and F1. So you know exactly when guys are pulling it for the extra juice. So
Gotcha.
So you were just holding the BMW that's ran by that's Rahal Letterman Lanigan Racing.
Okay.
So that is Bobby Rahal, former Indy 500 winner, very big. Mike Lanigan, very well-known business owner in the Midwest, and I'm not kidding, David Letterman,
What?
late night host. Yeah,
Oh my god.
yeah.
Cool.
So they've been running BMWs also for a very, very long time, originally in the GTs, and then got the call to run their GTP program when that got updated. Still looking for a championship. They were the last to kind of start developing this new car. So last year they were very much kind of developing it still on the job.
Okay.
But it's still super, super like in there for a win.
Yeah.
Easily the most dominant right now is Porsche, the Porsche 963 and Penske Motorsports. Penske is absolutely the dynamo of American racing. And I mean that in IndyCar, in NASCAR, and especially in sports car racing. Porsche has won the 24 Hours of Daytona more than any other manufacturer. And Penske has won pretty much all of the crown jewel events more than any other team.
Okay.
So they are a deadly combo. They are now your defending 2023 champion, or 2024 champions, excuse me. They are really, really stinking good.
Cool.
So absolutely some guys to look out with. New team this year, Heart of Racing with Aston Martin. It's a brand new car for Aston Martin. They're now making that move like BMW up from the GTs to the prototypes. This thing is going to sound so good. It's I don't know if you've seen Fernando Alonso, the clip of Fernando Alonso driving his car in Monaco.
No.
His road car. It's a Valkyrie. It's a very similar engine to that. Naturally aspirated V12, giant engine, revs super high. It's going to sound like a 90s F1 car. It's going to sound angelic.
Okay.
Heart of Racing, by the way, super, super cool team. Northwest-based, co-owned by Gabe Newell.
Newell.
Do you not know Gabe Newell?
No.
Founder of Steam.
Oh!
Yeah.
Oh my god. Okay.
We've actually talked to his son Gray, who competes in one of the lower categories for Heart of Racing.
Gotcha.
But they've been Aston Martin for their entire tenure in IMSA, so they were the ones that were chosen to kind of make the step up. Very much a maybe right now. We don't know who's going to be driving quite yet, but even if they're not fast, they're just going to sound really, really good, and I'm really excited for that. We've got a return to kind of old form in Wayne Taylor Racing and Cadillac. Wayne Taylor Racing is, I would argue, one of the biggest names in prototypes. Wayne Taylor and his two twin sons, Ricky and Jordan, love them both. They won Cadillac's first attempt in the top class in forever back in 2017. And they were rock stars forever. They were rock stars for a really, really long time with Cadillac and the old DPI regulations just a couple of years ago. And a couple switches were made. Cadillac moved to other teams. Wayne Taylor switched to Acura, and they were struggling for they just were not able to kind of get to that same level with Acura. So they are returning now this year from over from Acura back to Cadillac. There was kind of this renaissance of the brothers. Jordan went on to race with Corvette Racing for a little bit and then came back. Ricky was still with dad for a little bit, but was doing other things as well. So it's very much like we're getting the band back together to go back to old glory. So it's going to be really cool to see what they can do.
Gotcha.
The other big one is kind of weird but cool because with Acura gone with Wayne Taylor, they're going to Mike Shank Racing, mom and pop team from Ohio. They are originally they won the first 24 hours of Daytona with these regulations with Acura, but got disqualified due to incorrect tire pressures or illegal tire pressures. For financial reasons. They're also running an IndyCar, so Mike Shank, their team principal, wanted to focus kind of go full speed on IndyCar.
Yeah.
So dropped the program. They left with a win in 2023. And if they weren't disqualified from Daytona, they would have gone out with the team championship.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my God.
But Mike Shank has been looking to get back into it. He still runs Honda Power in IndyCar. And it's this very weird it's not weird. It's just a reunion no one expected because it thought there was this kind of schism between Acura or HRC and Mike Shank. And they're coming back together. And they were very, very fast. They've got the exact same combo that they did in 2023. Tom Blomqvist, Swedish-British guy who tried IndyCar for a little bit with Shank this year, is going back. Has been fast in sports cars his entire life. And he's driven like everything. Formula E, junior category formulas. If you've named it, he's driven it.
He beat Max Verstappen in F3.
Yeah.
Wow.
Dude can wheel.
Not many people can say that.
No. Him and Colin Brown, guy from Texas, part-time coach, driving coach. Really, really nice guy. Also tried IndyCar for a little bit. Everybody got a chance with in IndyCar this year. Yeah. They are for sure like the dynamic duo, especially at the start of these kind of regulations. So could be really, really scary next year.
Okay.
They're also kind of technically two teams.
For Acura or Shank?
One car is exclusively run by Shank. The other car is essentially run as MSR, but it's actually essentially a factory Honda team.
And I'm not sure. They did confirm that lineup. It's Nick Yellowly, who was co-driving that BMW that's up there last year, and Renger van de Zande, who was kind of the top driver at Cadillac for a while there. There's been like a lot of moves this year. For a lot of different reasons, but it's a lot of big names going different places. So really exciting shakeup, which I feel like we never see this early in the season.
Yeah.
But I'm really, really excited. I think it should be really, really cool. I've geeked out enough for the past like 10 minutes. Do you have any questions for me? Again, I feel like I'm throwing a lot at you right now, and I want to give you a chance to ask questions.
No, I feel like, there's not many things to like ask specific questions about, I would say. Because, I mean, we went through the different championships. Right. And then we went through, like, teams that are like, more well-known teams and also teams that are up and coming. So I feel like I don't really have any specific questions about those. But I think in terms of the race itself, like, I want you to go through how a weekend works. Because there are, like, 4 different races that are going on. Like, how long are these days? Like, because you have to... Are there practices or how many practices do they get? How does qualifying work when there's 4 different...
Yeah. Okay, so I'll start with this. For the endurance races, they are extremely friendly for testing. You see how Formula 1 rules work. You've got to have approved private testing and everything. There are so many group tests that are available for all of these teams. As soon as, obviously, the season just ended for us, but we're already going to see cars at Daytona in a couple weeks for this postseason test. And then they have this, before Daytona, they have this really big kind of their certified preseason test, which is called the Roar Before the 24. The Roar Before the Rolex. Oh, okay. All cars are usually there at that point. And it's usually about a weekend of testing. Okay. But then race week comes and you'll usually see cars on track as early as probably Wednesday. Okay. But you're getting a solid 2-3 days of practice at that point. And you're getting different conditions because, again, compared to F1 where you're going to have obviously one set of conditions, 24 hours, you want to get day and night testing because you want to know how your car is going to act in different conditions. Yeah. So same thing applies for 12 hours of Sebring or any other kind of extended races. You usually get a really good mix of day and night practices. Qualifying is Friday. The big question, obviously, I know you have is 4 different classes. How does that work? Yeah. 4 different sessions. Or depending on the race, it could be 3. They might have them if one's not in it, or sometimes they might merge the 2 GT categories into one session. Okay. And then race green flag is on Saturday morning at about 11 local, and then checkered is 24 hours from then.
Gotcha. Okay, and where's this race broadcasted?
Right now, NBC has the rights to it.
NBC.
If you're anywhere outside of America, you can actually get it streamed for free on YouTube through IMSA, which I love. Oh. Also, for sound, you can always get it online through IMSA Radio, no matter where you are. John Heindoff and the whole Radio Le Mans crew do an awesome job.
So you favor like IMSA and IndyCar over Formula One, right?
Right now, yes.
Yeah. What about it is so appealing to you?
Fan access.
Okay.
100,000%. There's no other series right now where I am able to, in a day, get like distance between you and me, not just from the drivers of each of these cars, but the cars themselves, and get that up close and personal with them.
Yeah.
And I still mean this genuinely, pennies on the dollar compared to Formula One. And I just think there's still such a sense of community, and you could argue that that's a given, considering sports car racing is a sport where, you know, you've got 3-4 guys sharing a car together. There's very much a sense of teamwork and collaboration.
Yeah.
But it's definitely a much less. It's very much competitive. Do not get me wrong, but it's not necessarily drama. There's very much a sense of camaraderie.
Okay.
And that's what I really like about it.
That's great, honestly, because I feel like whenever I watch, you know, Formula One, and it's like these drivers are working as if they're like on the same team, even though like they are, but they're not. Like they're always fighting against each other.
You are not going to see tweets about how one driver looks at another post race and try to make an entire document breaking that down and what that could possibly mean.
Yeah, because they're fighting for the same, like they're working together in the same car, rather than two separate cars working for the same like standing. Right.
And there are, I do need to mention, a lot of these teams are multi-car efforts. But even then, Joey was curious about this, but it's very much still, I would say, a team over driver kind of thing, where if you've got two cars, if it's a manufacturer 1-2 at the end of a race, you're usually not going to want them to really get their elbows out and race, just because it's still very much the phrase we say is win on Sunday, sell on Monday, because it's always going to, the belief is if you do well on track, you're going to do well in the showroom.
Yeah.
So it's very much a showroom driven kind of strategy is the best way I could describe it.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Okay. I think we're getting to that point then, because I don't think you have anything else.
I don't think I really have any other questions.
I am going to say right now, if you guys have any questions, drop them in the comments wherever you're watching, and have a cool Q&A section at some point. I don't know.
Yeah.
We'll figure it out. I think we're going to wrap it up there. I hope you guys enjoyed watching this. I hope you had as much fun watching it as we did making it. And again, if you have any questions, leave it in the comments. We will see you guys really soon. I'm Jackson. That's Nikki. We'll see you guys next time.
Yes.
Woo!
Bye. Well, are you going to do a fun question? Or a fun statement?
Fun statement to end it?
Yeah, I mean, your like pizza with ranch one.
Ooh.
Or a hot take. Oh, actually, I'll do the hot take.
Okay. All right, go for it.
Well, no, I told this to you guys earlier in the car.
Okay.
Or not early in the car, but earlier here, that Ford Fiestas are puny.
Okay.
What is it with like every like small woman hating small?
I feel like we just see the car and I'm just like, like, you know, it's big dogging that.
So we hate, as dudes, we hate the stereotype of like the ideal dude drives a Ford F-150. Is that within your beliefs?
Oh, that I don't like an F-150?
Yeah, you would like a dude in an F-150 or an F-150, either or?
I would take an F-150 over a Fiesta. But yeah, no hate to anyone that has a Fiesta. That's just my personal opinion. And you can disagree with me. That's just, you know, yeah.